Hello, everyone. Hello, hello. Welcome back, yes. Welcome back, everyone. Got a nice hot beverage. It's not quite what I wanted, but it will do. Wanted a nice ice cold cider, to be honest with you. It was very nice here in the UK today. Right. So, I've got a message up here that says start of qualifying will be delayed. But I'm not sure if that is true or not, because Sky Sports just said that qualifying is actually started in half an hour's time. So we're going to put the timer on anyway for half an hour time. And we'll see whether we have to adjust that or not. It is a 22nd today, isn't it? Yeah. 21:30. There we go. But get your votes in. Who do you think is going to be on sprint pole? Of course, if you think anyone other than who I have suggested there is going to be on pole position, let me know. I can only pick 4 choices, so I've gone for Antonelli, Russell, Norris or Piastri grouped together, Hamilton or Leclerc grouped together. Of course, I haven't included Max Verstappen. I understand that. Of course, he did get second in Miami, but this is the sprint, and I'm just going from what I saw in practice as well. It's cooking outside. I know, it's lovely. Absolutely lovely. It feels wrong having a coffee right now, but hey-ho. Hamilton on pole. I don't know. I don't think so. I think definitely Mercedes have the edge. I don't think it's as wide of a gap as what we saw with the times between McLaren. I think there was definitely something going on with McLaren. Maybe just doing their own testing program. But yeah, there's definite improvements there for McLaren regardless. And if they are second and third, if they are on the second row, I don't think that gap is going to be. Like too wide as what it was. So, any plans for the bank holiday, Matt? Not particularly. No, round my mum's tomorrow. Then I've got the evening to myself because there's the little one and the missus are staying around my mum's. But I'll be doing this, of course. I say I've got the evening to myself. I'll be with you guys, of course, commentating on the qualifying session. Then Sunday, me and the missus do have a bit of a kind of like free afternoon / day into Monday. So I think what we're most looking forward to is just having a nice lay-in on Monday, not being woken up by the little one. So yeah, that's our plans really. Now, are we going to see a medium run in Q3? No, definitely not. The soft compound tyre is too good around here. It's too good. It's your birthday Sunday, Matt. Oh, well, happy birthday for Sunday. Hope you celebrate it well. And yeah, nice to have it on a bank holiday so you can go out and get, depending on what age you are, you can enjoy yourself Sunday night without having to worry about getting up Monday morning. Ferrari will not get pole. They're down on power. The pole is between Mercedes and McLaren. I agree. And especially considering they haven't brought any updates. And I don't feel like there's too many updates that Ferrari can bring right now that will improve their performance and close that gap to Mercedes. Primarily, yeah, it is power. So, have I upgraded my subscription to get colour on their stats? Well, we don't actually have the timings up yet. They normally go live 15 minutes before. And it seems they were sorted at the end. Nice one, Beefy. Nice one. Here it's grey in London. Is it? I mean, I'm looking outside. Is it a bit grey now? It's definitely been a nice day, though. Got a feeling that VC strategy will win the race, not fastest car. Potentially. I think we will see a safety car here this weekend, especially if there's rain, which it is forecast to be on Sunday. I think there'll be incident in the sprint race as well. And it's going to be an interesting one. I don't think it's necessarily going to be plain sailing. So, bets on red flag in quali, penalty for track limits to colour. I don't know if there'll be... I'm not so sure about maybe red flag in sprint quali. Because I guess the sprint quali, there's not a lot of points on offer, is there? So unless it can't... I don't think there will be. Unless someone, like... Yeah, this is another groundhog, unfortunately, that comes into play. And breaks the suspension of a car. But, I'm going to say no for sprint quali, but yes for quali tomorrow. Because there's more points on offer, and I think the drivers will feel more comfortable in the car, and they will push more. So happy it's race weekend again. Oh, so am I. So am I. It's been a while. We are unfortunately going into another 2-week break. The breaks just get less and less. Then we go 5, 3, 2. And then we go into a double header of Monaco and Barcelona. Then there's another week's break, or 2-week break, and then there's another double header. And it's like that pattern for like the next 2 months, I think it is. Thank you, Matt. Much appreciated. Yeah, thank you everyone for tuning in and obviously subscribing as well. We're on the way to 100k. It's blazing hot in Texas. I bet it is, Claire. What is it? How hot is it in Texas? I bet it's very hot. Minutes time. We will change scene once we've got the live data available. It normally comes up in about 5 minutes time, around 15 minutes before the session starts. And yeah, remember, this is sprint quali. So for the first 2 sessions, we will have medium compound tyres in use. That is mandatory. They cannot use any other tyre. And then SQ3, they will be using the soft compound tyre because that is the tyre of choice. So just because you are quick on the soft doesn't mean you're necessarily quick on the medium, as always, and vice versa. But I suspect the usual suspects will be quick and be able to get through. But this is a busy track as well. You have to remember it's a short track, only around 1 minute. 14s we saw earlier. We will see the 113s, I presume. And yeah, what will happen is that we've seen drivers receive penalties for impeding here in the past. So it's going to be a very busy circuit, of course, with 22 cars now, 2 extra cars on track rather than 20. So the first 2 sessions are going to be interesting, and track evolution is going to play a big factor here. The track is going to get quicker and quicker and quicker as the session goes on. So the later you leave it, the better lap time you're going to be able to produce, but the riskier it is, of course, in not being able to get that lap time in because of yellow flags and red flags, etc. So there is a risk attached to that. So what we're going to see in, I think, in especially SQ1 and SQ2 is a very ever-changing session. So the sessions are just because your driver has set a good lap time to start off with, they are going to make significant improvement in their second, third run, which we will see on these mediums, no doubt. Any news on Albon's car, whether it will be running in SQ? No news yet. No, not from what I've seen. Antonelli doing so well is proof how the cars can be turned to favour one driver more than the other. There is no way he is suddenly miraculously better than Russell. I don't know. I think Antonelli is definitely a very, very talented driver. I mean, he would have won 3 races in a row from pole position and got those pole positions if it wasn't. It just proves that confidence is a massive thing in any sport, and especially for Formula One, it is massive. And so you have to be in the right place at the right time when it comes to Formula One. I bet you there's lots of drivers who have come into the sport at a young age, but if they found themselves with a championship-winning car in their second year of Formula One, then they would also put up a decent challenge. Lewis Hamilton was one of those who was fortunate enough to be in a championship-winning car in his first season, let alone his second. And normally it is the case that you have to build your way up in F1 to get to being in a position that Kimi Antonelli is in, or that Lewis Hamilton found himself in. I mean, even Max Verstappen had to build his way up to that Red Bull car. Yes, he did it in a short period of time, but he didn't start in Red Bull. No, he started in the junior team, was there for, a year and a bit, wasn't it? Year and a half. And then he went up into the top team and at a very young age proved that, yes, this is what I can do. And if you have the like these guys, just because they're in the top tier of F1, a lot of them are winners. Not all of them, but a lot of them are winners. They're used to winning in junior formulas and their karting career. That's why they've been most of the time, not all the time, because we know how much money plays a factor of it. They are able to get into Formula One. I mean, so the likes of Kimi has won throughout all his junior career. George Russell did similar as well, but for him, the timing, this is now his first time having a championship winning car. He was held in, as we said earlier, held in Williams for arguably 2 years too long. He spent 4 years at the back of the grid in the Williams when it should have been 2. And then when he did eventually join Mercedes, he's joined in a team that is not fighting for the title. And he's had to bide his time. And now he does. Kimi has come in at the right time. But Kimi is also a special talent as well. But it's very, very rare that you find a top team take a punt, really, on such a young driver. Right, so we are still waiting for the live time, and it should be ready any moment now. Exactly, so many young drivers get loaded in with the low teams. Yeah, exactly, and I get it. It's part of the development path, and also normally there's only limited amount of spaces on the grid. You know, you've got all these drivers vying to get to the top step, and having an F1 career. If you're a good F1 driver, you can have a career that spans 2 decades, 15 years. So you're not going. That's you securing one of 22 seats now, was 20. For an extended period of time. And if you come through, and we all know obviously money plays a massive factor, but if your route is blocked, you may be very good, and there's some very good drivers that have come through the junior ranks, but have found themselves on the sidelines and having to step away and put to bed that dream of F1 because, one, they don't have the connections. They don't quite maybe have the pool of money behind them to be able to force a team to push maybe an elder driver out of the way, i.e. like a Bottas, when it was at the time. I'm saying elder, like he's not old, but he's one of the older drivers. And they just came through at the wrong time. And they may very well have been a very good F1 driver. And that's the case with Formula One. It is a massive career game. And, I mean, look, you've still got... I know people will say how good Fernando Alonso is, but you've also got Fernando Alonso, who is driving mid-40s. Lewis Hamilton now into his 40s and saying yesterday that he's not going to retire probably for the next 3-4 years if he has anything to say about it. So with the advancements of sports science and nutrition and so forth, drivers can go on for longer and hold on to these seats a lot longer. And as we always know, teams are going to hold on to certain drivers a lot longer than maybe they necessarily deserve to because of the monetary value that they can bring to a team. So it's an interesting sport in that regard. It really is, because we don't ever get the top 22 deserving drivers coming through and being on the grid, and that has always been the case in Formula One. Was it 10 years ago, the Canadian GP Seagull incident? Was it that long ago? Oh my goodness. That makes me feel old. Why don't I put Verstappen in the poll? Just because I still need to see more from that Red Bull to put him in there ahead of the 2 Ferraris and the 2 McLarens at the moment. I was thinking of not even putting the 2 Ferraris in there, to be honest with you. But I thought it'd be fun to put the 2 Ferraris in there. I was going to do the option of Norris and Piastri as each their own, because I do think they're the only ones who could properly take it to McLaren Mercedes this weekend. But Verstappen, if he does it this time around, then it'll be like, okay, I'll put him in the next poll. Albon will not run the sprint quali, Williams said in their website. Oh, that's a shame, because that's not even his fault. That's a real shame that he won't be able to run in sprint quali. Not that they've really had too much of an opportunity of scoring points anyway, but still, it's running that he's not going to get to have. So following the incident involving wildlife. Yeah, it was definitely wildlife. Why is the live data not gone ready yet? Let's change scene anyway. Leonardo Fornaroli, is that who you're saying is coming through at the wrong time? I bet if both were free agents every time people would choose Kimi. Well, it depends what they want. It depends, really. Because Kimi's at the start of his career, whereas George is a lot more, you could say, safer pair of hands. It's still a very long way to go in this season, and I think anyone who's writing off George Do so at your own do so at your own will. But did you learn nothing from last year with Oscar Piastri? Have you watched F1 before? Just because you have a lead at the start of the season doesn't mean that you're able to maintain that lead, especially with how long the season is now as well. And especially with this brand new regulation set. And really, George has had some mechanical issues, some little gremlins that have cost him some positions. Miami definitely was his own performance, which you could say Kimi clearly outperformed him. But there will be ebbs and flows throughout the season where Kimi has those issues as well. There we go. Live data ready for us. So I do have, as I said, I do have the session start here as starting in 12 minutes odd time. But it did say that the session was going to be delayed. But I think it's going to be okay. Oh, it looks like there might only be 20 cars qualifying. So because of Alex Albon, that was definitely going to be 21. We've had confirmation that he's not participated in sprint quali. But Liam Lawson's car still hasn't been repaired. There's no gearbox on the car right now. Oh my goodness, the car is in many pieces, and I don't suspect that. Yeah, I don't suspect that Liam Lawson's car will be out there at all for qualifying. So it looks like we're going to have 20 cars for sprint quali. It's in colour, yes! No black and white, no grey from earlier that we had. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it's like... The thing is, Kimi has had luck, but I wouldn't say he's had... Like, you couldn't put his wins down to luck entirely. He still would have been challenging for those wins, even if George was at like full capacity. Had a fully working car. And Kimi has been quick, and he's quick here. So, yeah, I would not be surprised to see Kimi Antonelli on sprint pole. Kimi will get pole, then Hamilton, then Russell, then Leclerc. I don't know. I think there's too much of a gap at the moment between Ferrari and the Mercedes. Mercedes clearly they clearly have an advantage. It looked like they have a clear advantage from what we saw in FP1, but time will tell. Would really like to see top driver next to Max to see if Red Bull is that bad, or is it really made for Max? Never happened yet, though. So the Red Bull situation is not so much this case of they solely build the car around Max. What they do is that they aim to build the fastest car possible, and then the drivers have to deal with it. And Max, with how adaptable he is, and we've seen this across different motorsport series, like just we saw him in the GT3, he is a very adaptable driver. Now, because of that, Max is able to get the most out of the car than his teammates, who, yes, have been subpar in ability to him, like just raw pace alone. So that helps him as well. And what happens is that, undoubtedly, his feedback is the one that is going to be prioritised over the second driver, because he's able to get the most out of the car that the engineers have built and the designers have built. And then if Max Verstappen wants a car, because he is able to get the most out of that car that they've built, if he then wants that car to have more front end, or wants it to act in a particular way, then the team will take his feedback more into consideration and go away and not necessarily build it to his specifications and stuff, because Max isn't an engineer and he's not a designer, but they will build a car that undoubtedly will lend itself more to those characteristics that their number one driver, who is able to get the most out of the base car that they've designed, than the driver who isn't. And then what happens is that gap just starts to widen and widen and widen, because, yeah, Max is able to make that car go quicker than from the outset than the teammates. Whereas if a teammate came in and was able to get the most out of that car before Max and continue to do that, then yes, that dynamic may change. But for now, and as it has been at Red Bull, Max is the one who's able to do that. So Max has a sharper driving style, so yes, and that could be done around. Of course, his setup and so forth, and that is what will happen. I don't think they specifically, with how what I understand the engineering and stuff works, and the whole design elements, they don't specifically build the car like from the outset for one driver. They obviously have a concept, and undoubtedly they will take considerations of who their number one driver is and go, well, if we design the car in this particular way, yes, it will maybe have this particular characteristic or whatever. I'm sure that they'll be able to ascertain that with the amount of wind tunnel time that they have and so forth, and all the simulation data. And then, but if Max instantly is able to get on top of that car than others, then, which he consistently has been able to do throughout his time at Red Bull, then of course they lend themselves to leaning more towards Max's side of the garage, wanting designing the car or creating parts of the car that will lend it to more to his driving characteristics than that of his teammate, who is not able to do so. What I'm saying is Max is just a car merchant. Name me someone who's won the Formula One World Championship who wasn't in the top 3 fastest cars. You probably have to go back a very, very long way for that to be the case. But I would probably assume, just from off the top of my head, from back to the 70s, 80s, so you're talking last 30, 40 years, you have to be in the top 3 fastest. I'm being generous with the top 3 fastest cars. You have to be in the top 2, but let's say top 3. You're not going to win a championship if you're in the 4th fastest car, 5th fastest car. That's just not how Formula One works. Your driving ability cannot outdrive the car. I know people like to say that, oh, it outdrives the car. No, like there's very small. Some cars have a very wide window of performance, and some have very narrow windows of performance, and that's what Max is able to do. Max is able to get the performance out of a car where the window is very narrow, and his other teammates haven't been able to do that, whereas Max has. That's not him outdriving the car. That's him driving the car to a specific way that it needs to get the best out of it. Kimi Raikkonen has always been a subpar driver to you. Well, Kimi Raikkonen was someone who actually came onto the scene. Like, he was someone who was talked about. Everyone went, have you seen this kid? Like, have you seen this kid coming through the ranks? Like, he was setting the world alight when he was about to join F1. Like, he was very highly sought after. But then, yeah, kind of, I guess in his 30s and so, he should have won probably more championships. But yeah, tailed off in the second half. I guess once he turned 30, he kind of just went, I don't really care anymore about this. But still enjoyed driving racing cars. So, there's a lot of pressure on George right now. I'm excited to see what happens. Yeah, it's a long season. Albon damaged his tub. I don't know if he damaged the tub, but he did quite an extensive amount of damage to that car. The suspension was damaged, and yeah, if the tub has been damaged, then that's not a simple process to just remove and add in. That rule was probably just under the fastest by the end of last season. Not the last third of the season. It wasn't the fastest overall. What happened last year is that if you look at where the Red Bull was strong all throughout last season was the low downforce, low grip surface tracks. And that's where the Red Bull succeeded very well. Baku, Monza, where else was it that he did well at? Spa. Anywhere that he could run a low downforce setup, the Red Bull did very well. Vegas, because the Red Bull couldn't compete with the McLaren in the corners. And with their tyre management as well, with the high-speed, high-loaded corners, it just wasn't that great of a car. Now, you could look at Qatar. Yes, overall, the course of the season, they did make improvements and close that gap up on those type of circuits, which they were weak at and McLaren was strong at. But you look at Qatar, we know how prevalent the dirty air is. So Lando, once Max got ahead of Lando, it was always going to be tricky for Lando to overtake him because of the nature of that circuit and so forth. But Oscar was able to just drive off and create a pretty decent gap, wasn't he, to Max? And it wasn't the fastest car overall come the end of the season, but it was definitely strong at those sort of circuits, which there were a lot of at the end of the season, which is the nature of a Formula One season. You go to all different types of circuits which have different characteristics and lend themselves to the strengths and weaknesses of particular cars. And it just so happened that come the end of the season, it's the same for Oscar. At the end of the season, we had a lot of low grip surface tracks, which Lando excelled at, and at Los Oscar evidently didn't. And for Max, he also has strength in those low grip surface tracks, which is why, in addition with the Red Bull having a clear pace advantage in a straight line over the McLaren in those low downforce, low grip surface tracks, he was able to really close up on the two McLarens who were still taking points off each other and McLaren themselves. So, yeah. But he did it. They provided him the car, and he didn't quite obviously do it, but he closed up that gap, and he was able to win as many races as he was come the end of the year, and he actually ended with one more race win than Lando Norris come the end of the year, and dominated those closing races because they provided him a car, and when he's got that car underneath him, it's what the best drivers are able to do, convert it. But they changed engines after Canada or here already? So I think it's after Monaco is when the ADUO stuff comes in, so that's probably when they'll do it. But Barcelona probably is when they'll change engines, I think, when we'll see new engines in. George needs to shut down the kid before he starts having ideas. Confidence is a huge part in racing. If Russell doesn't take care of it soon, Antonelli might start having ideas. Yeah, no, he needs to get on top of him. He needs to stop this run, really. He needs to, even if George doesn't win this race, right? He needs to just finish ahead. He needs to beat Antonelli, simple as. He needs to come away from this race weekend, I think, closing the gap at minimum to Antonelli and finishing ahead of him. Ideally in both races, but mainly in the race on Sunday, because that's where the big points are. To stop this run of form that Antonelli has, which is 3 race wins, 3 pole positions, 3 race wins. First driver in F1 history to have their first 3 pole positions ever in succession, and convert those into race wins. He's the only driver to ever have done that. So he's created some history there, and yeah. Say to himself that I am still here, basically. So, right. So, drivers making their way to the end of the pit lane. We are going to have 12 minutes of SQ1. We are unfortunately down 2 drivers because of Liam Lawson and Alex Albon's cars not being fit to participate in sprint quali, which is a shame. So we still have 20 cars out there, and it's going to be a busy one because remember, you can only use the medium compound tyre in SQ1 and SQ2. SQ3 is the only session where you're able to use the soft compound. Track temperature has increased slightly. It's up to 42 degrees right now. So we'll see how that fares on those rear tyres. But we're going to see multiple laps on these mediums, undoubtedly, which is going to make this a very busy circuit. The first time we've ever had sprint quali and a sprint race here at Canada. And I'm really looking forward to it, to be honest with you. Here we go. We should have green light any second. There we go. Green light. Pit exit is open. We are go for the sprint quali for the Canadian Grand Prix. 12 minutes ahead of us, and everyone is going to be on those medium compound tyres. So let's see who... Are we going to see any shockers? Now, remember, the track evolution here is a big factor. So the later you go out, the quicker your lap time is going to be. So it's risky, because we've already seen a number of red flags. So we saw 3 earlier on due to incidents. And that was in practice alone. So with only 1 hour practice, normally they have 3 practice sessions to prepare for the race weekend. This time around, for the first time ever at the Canadian Grand Prix, they've only had 1 hour of running. So Lewis Hamilton out there, not wanting to waste any time and probably get a decent banker lap in. But I do presume, just like we saw in Miami, there's going to be some big gains come the end of the session. The last 5 minutes, the last 3 minutes or so are going to be very important, and there's going to be a lot of changes on this leaderboard. Let me know who you think is going to be getting on sprint pole. I am now going to end the poll because I'm not going to let you guys watch the next 2 the next 2 sessions and then decide who you think is going to be a sprint pole. But unsurprisingly, 54% of you think Antonelli is going to get on sprint pole position, 54%. Hamilton and Leclerc are next. Oh, you think one of the Ferraris is going to be on ahead of George? I'm surprised George Russell is lowest at 13%. Very surprised. Many of you not having faith with George Russell. Oh, right, it has just started. It has just started. I'm just getting my caffeine fix, finishing my coffee. And we will have Lewis Hamilton there, who's first out there, making his way through turn 6 as Nico Hülkenberg makes out of his way with a 21.6 in the first sector. And I remember on the mediums, we have seen sub 20 seconds in that first sector on the soft compound tyre in FP1. We're not going to see that until SQ3 because they have to use the mediums in the first 2 sessions, but we'll see what Hamilton is able to get in relation to a banker lap, as well as Charles Leclerc and those following close behind. But the Ferraris will be first out there. Need to be careful of those front lockups as well. We saw a lot of lockups from a lot of teams earlier on in FP1. That's the nature of this circuit. No higher loaded downforce corners here. It's all about the hard braking zones. It's all about managing the rear temps, but trying to get as much front temperatures as you can because you want to have that heat in those tyres so that they grip up under braking. Otherwise, you will lock up and find yourself navigating your way around the chicane, through the chicane rather than around it, which you're supposed to do. As Lewis Hamilton does a 1:15.459 in the first banker lap there. I don't know if that's any good or not, to be honest with you. We saw, of course, low 14s earlier on the soft tyres. Let's see what they're going to be able to do on the... Actually, we saw 13, sorry. We saw 13s earlier on the soft tyres. So we're some way off the pace, understandably. As Carlos Sainz does a 1:17.1. And Charles Leclerc... Oh, what happened with Charles there? I think Charles had to bail out of his middle sector there, Charles Leclerc. That was not... Or was he... He's slower than the Bottas, so I'm not sure what happened with Charles. Maybe he's going for a second outlap. It is more engine and battery than it is chassis. Yes, for sure. Undoubtedly, because of how many straight mode zones there are. Of course, you need the braking ability as well. You need to be good under traction. It's not just about that. You need to have the level. If you're sliding around on the rears on throttle, you're going to lose so much time here with how many chicanes there are. But Charles Leclerc did go quicker than Lewis Hamilton in that first sector, around a 10th quicker. George Russell is pretty quick in that first sector, as well as Perez goes up there ahead of his teammate into P3. He's definitely getting the better of his teammate right now, as Lando Norris goes quickest in the first sector. Charles still quickest in the second. Let's see how he fares, though. Piastri slowing down for Charles Leclerc. Hamilton, his teammate, having to move out of the way as well. Will we see some drivers impeding here in this session? We have seen it in the past. George Russell takes that purple sector away from Charles Leclerc, as Charles goes fastest and improves on Lewis Hamilton's benchmark time there of a 1:15.0. So 4.5 attempts made on Lewis Hamilton as Bottas gets ahead of Sergio Perez. But Lando Norris is making his way around turn 12, full throttle, straight mode on as he makes his way into the braking zone of turn 13. George Russell crosses the line and does a 14.72 and a bit temps on Charles Leclerc on that first lap as Lando Norris comes across the line here. Kimi Antonelli has not gone particularly quick. He's had to bail out of his lap here, Kimi Antonelli, with a 28.9 in the middle sector. So not good for Kimi Antonelli. But look who's going purple in the first and second sector. Yes, the Dutchman, the Flying Dutchman, fresh off of his unfortunate finish with the Nordschleife. Max Verstappen there in 19th at the bottom of your screens. He has made up a significant amount of time in the first and second sector as Hadjar moves up into P6 there. As Arvid Lindblad does a great time and moves up into P4 as Lance Stroll moves up into P11 there. As Verstappen jumps to the top and does a 1:14.476. But you can see purple sectors are being snatched away left, right and centre here as the track is improving. As we head into the halfway stage of this SQ1 session, Antonelli fastest in the first sector, even though he had to bail out of his middle sector last time around. No bailing out this time around as he does a 23.499. As Oscar Piastri with the fastest middle sector, unable to quite hook it up in the last sector, goes third fastest. Only 3 temps, just over 3 temps separating the top 3, which are Verstappen, Russell and Piastri. But back to Kimi Antonelli as he makes his way down the last back straight there into the braking zone of turn 13, through the wall of champions, not into the wall of champions. And Antonelli maybe getting a cheeky little toe off George Russell there. George Russell not wanting to, of course, give a toe to his teammate. Well, maybe he inadvertently does there, but this isn't for pole position right now. She's about getting through into SQ2, and Gantonelli goes fastest, 4.5 tenths quicker than Max Verstappen. But Lewis Hamilton goes quicker than anyone in the first sector, a 21.007. That's a very good lap time on the mediums, and just shows that even on the medium compound tyres, we will probably see sub 21 seconds in that first sector. Franco Colapinto, who did no running in the first practice session because of a throttle issue, is out there, and he's currently in 17th. Now remember, there's 2 cars already out of this session, Alex Albon and Liam Lawson, so there are only 4 more positions up for grabs here in the drop zone, so we'll see who that is as Russell goes even quicker in the middle sector. Lewis Hamilton only a 10th off in the middle, so he is going to improve here, and Lewis Hamilton does improve and goes fastest ahead of Kimi Antonelli with a 13.9. Pretty decent there. Turn 14 incident involving Gasly has been noted for impeding, so that's not too good there for Pierre Gasly. We'll see how whether or not that was impeding or not, as George Russell, I think, has just maybe been impeded by Oscar Piastri. Oh, dearie me. What happened there? Or did George Russell have to go through the chicane? Because he had to bail out of his lap there as Verstappen does the fastest first sector of anyone thus far, and it's a sub 21 seconds for the Dutchman. I mean, yet to see whether George Russell, what happened with George, and watching it now, did he get impeded as he went down into the last chicane, or was it, no, it was a lock-up for George, so a lock-up, he had to bail out of his lap, and unfortunately that's what we have seen from many a driver through today. But Max Verstappen slow in the middle sector. He's lost a bit of time there. He's 2 tenths down on his middle sector time. As Arvid Lindblad is mixing it up there in the top 5. Probably won't stay there, but he's looking a dab handy right now. Arvid Lindblad, as Hadjar moves up into P6. Verstappen coming across the line now, and where does he go? Does he improve significantly? He does improve and goes P3. If it wasn't for a slow middle sector, would have been jumping to the top of the timing screens comfortably, as he lost 2 tenths there in the middle sector. So not a lot separating the top of the timing screens, with Hamilton with the fastest time right now. But the question is, do they need to do any more running? I don't really think they do. I don't think there's going to be that much improvement from those down from P17. So at the moment in the drop zone, it is currently Carlos Sainz, Sergio Perez, Valtteri Bottas, Franco Colapinto, Alex Albon and Liam Lawson, who are not running. Those drivers are at risk. The Alpines, who are coming off of a strong weekend in Miami, look to be all sorts here at the early stages of this weekend, as Lewis Hamilton goes even quicker in the first sector, a 20.946. Of course, he has fond memories of Canada, won multiple times around here. So I think he got his first win. Did Lewis Hamilton get his first win here? I can't remember if it was here where he did get his first win. I think it was his first win, wasn't it? Wasn't his first podium, because that was Australia, his first race. So I think this Canada was where he got his first win. So yes, has fond memories regardless of this circuit. It's Colapinto, there we go. That's more like it from the Argentinian, what we expect from Alpine, up into P10. Not too shabby, as Perez moves up into P17. Not enough to drag that Cadillac outside of the drop zone. And well, Ollie Behrman is definitely a risk here in P16, with Bortoleto also at risk there. Fernando Alonso, could he do the unthinkable? Could he get the Aston Martin out of Q1? Go on, Alonso. We are cheering you. What a performance that will be for Fernando Alonso, as he's currently in P14. It's very tight down there. Only needs 3 tenths improvements from a few of them. As the yellow flag goes, no! Speaking of Alonso, no! Don't tell me I jinxed him! No! I'm sorry! Oh, I'm so sorry. Fernando Alonso. Fernando Alonso, I'm so sorry. Commentator's curse. Fernando Alonso, red flag, has brought out the red flag at turn 3 and turn 4. And what has happened to the Aston Martin of Alonso? He was sitting in P14, and we've got a red flag. And there may be some saving grace for Fernando Alonso, though, because while he may have torn that Aston Martin to pieces, I'm still yet to see footage of what actually has occurred with the Spaniard. But he's facing straight into the wall. Front left wheel is bent in, is broken. Undoubtedly, the front suspension is gone as well. And that's interesting. I don't know where he is there. I think he's just gone straight on. I think he's just locked up and gone straight on into turn 3. That hasn't even made it to the entry of the chicane. And Yes, he has. So what has happened there for Fernando Alonso? Is that driver error? Is that something that has gone wrong with that Aston Martin, which has so often been the case? But he's just gone straight on into turn 3. Hasn't even made it to the entry of the corner. Waiting to see a replay of what occurred. But Fernando Alonso, who I was just waxing lyrical about and said he could be on course for doing the impossible and getting through SQ1, which is still a possibility, by the way, because there is only 1 minute 46 seconds remaining of this session. Drivers will have an opportunity to get out there and do another lap because, well, it is only a 1 minute, as you see here, 1 minute 15 lap time for those down the bottom. So there is opportunity here for one more lap. So I'm watching the replay of Fernando Alonso. Oh, yeah, driver error. He locked up almost, I think it looked like he locked up all 4 wheels under braking. As soon as he touched the brakes, they just locked. Both fronts locked. Yeah, that's an odd one. That does seem to be quite an odd one because you don't see both fronts lock like that on braking into that corner. So I mean, he's apologising. Yeah, sorry, lock up, mate. So Alonso is taking it on the chin and saying, owning up to it, it is his fault. But it did seem a little bit of an odd one. But with that Aston Martin, he's not exactly driving a simple machine, is he? It's a very complicated machine, that Aston Martin right now. But Fernando Alonso, oh, God, I can't believe it. I can't believe it. Commentators curse. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Oh, hello, everyone, though. Welcome for tuning in. If you're just tuning in, yes, we have, unfortunately, just had Fernando Alonso crash, gone straight into the barrier at turn 3. Double front lockup for him as he was sitting in P14. An opportunity to get that Aston Martin out of SQ1 and into SQ2 with Albon and Lawson not participating due to their cars not being in any fit shape to be ready for this qualifying today. But he could still make it through. He could still make it through, but a real shame. A real shame for him there. Why is Leclerc so low right now? I don't know. Just not able to maybe get a lap time in. Lewis Hamilton did improve, by the way, last time around. 1:13.889. Kimi Antonelli was looking to improve as well. Was about neck and neck, really, with Lewis Hamilton by the looks of that those 2 lap times there in Sector 1 and Sector 2. Slightly quicker in the second sector. So, yeah, looking pretty decent, Lewis Hamilton. But this is on the mediums, remember. We're on the mediums right now. Doesn't necessarily mean that that performance will carry over into the soft compound. Remember Miami last time around? The Ferrari definitely seemed to be a lot better on the mediums, and when they got onto the softs, they struggled with their tyre temps. And I wonder if that will be the case for Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc again when we come to SQ3. I hope that's not the case, of course, because the more the merrier in the fight for pole position. But that could be a pattern with no updates for this weekend. Ferrari they're aiming for Barcelona by the sounds of it. As Antonelli, just watching a replay of him getting impeded by one of the Haas's. I don't know if that was Behrman or Ocon, but it was quite dangerous. Who put it in the barrier? Alonso. Fernando Alonso. But yeah, why is the McLaren so much slower in the first sector? I don't know. I don't know right now. Maybe there is something. Yeah, maybe they don't quite have the pace. Maybe it's Ferrari, but this is the medium, remember. We're on, as I just touched upon, we are on the medium. So still some time to go in this session. It's not over and done with yet. It is pretty much, I think SQ1 is pretty much a fight between the Haas's. It's probably a fight between everywhere from signs down, I think, is probably at risk. There's probably some significant improvement in there for Gasly to push Behrman and that down. I say significantly at risk. I don't see Perez gaining that much time, Stroll, Bottas. So really, it's just dependent on Gasly. There's one position at risk. So can I compare sector times? Of course I can. Yes, apologies. We still don't know when the session is going to get restarted. So here are the sector times right now, you can see. But Hamilton fastest in the first sector, only just by around 0.05 of a second over Max Verstappen. Arvid Lindblad, wow, look how good that RB is in the middle first sector. Loses a lot of time in the middle sector, but doing very well. And the last sector, Lindblad 6th fastest also. So that RB looking very, very dab handy here at this stage of the weekend. So not a lot to separate them in the first sector. Norris and Piastri really, yeah, not losing quite a bit of time in that first sector. 3 tenths off the pace of Hamilton and Verstappen. And they're, well, yeah, at least 2 tenths down on Antonelli. And then in the middle sector, they do fare much better. They're quite up there, very close up there. And then the last sector, so yeah, really, it's the first sector that is costing the McLarens right now, particularly in Lando Norris's hands, for him to be further up there. Piastri looks like he kind of needs an all-round better lap across the board. My take on Max winning the World Championship in 2026. My take on it is that there needs to be... Red Bull need to come out and all of a sudden build the fastest car that F1 has ever seen. Because with him being as many points behind as he already is, he's not going to... Even if he wins 10 races between now and the end of the season, he's not going to... he's not going to challenge for the title. So this isn't last year. Rep, this is not the place for this. I'm putting you in a timeout. Ooh, but ultimately, how quick the drivers are on these medium compound tyres doesn't mean diddly squat. Because for the top teams, it's all about SQ3. So this is just about them on the mediums doing what is necessary to get through to the next session. And SQ3 is where it matters. What has been happening to Lawson? Does he have a car problem? Yes, so he retired from FP1 very early. They had a hydraulic issue, I believe it was. But the car was in pieces. No gearbox, no rear end attached, no front end attached. The car was in pieces. So, yeah, they're doing some extensive work to his car that undoubtedly meant that he wasn't able to participate in this session. Who's your current favourite driver on the grid right now? I've always said this. I am a fan of Lewis Hamilton. He's the only driver that I support and actively keep an eye on where he's doing on the grid. Doesn't mean he's above reproach, though, and criticism. If I think he does stupid stuff or has a poor performance, I'll call it out. But yeah, other than that, I don't actively support anyone or any team. There's drivers that I prefer over others, but I just want to see good racing. I think Ferrari's still going to be fast on soft. My worry is we see a repeat of Miami. So we'll see. We'll see. I just got a feeling they're going to spike those temps. And they're going to be good on the mediums like we saw them. But then it comes to SQ3, we're on the softs, and then it's like, oh, where did Ferrari's pace go again? And as they've brought no updates to address that issue, like from performance perspective, aerodynamically and that, I suspect that will be the same. I hope not, but... What happened to Gasly? Why so slow? I really don't know with Gasly and Alpine. I don't know. I haven't seen anything. Maybe he just hasn't been able to get a decent lap in. I mean, he's 1.2 seconds off of his teammate right now. So there is... Gasly, I think, just needs a clean lap, I would presume. Maybe he's just got caught in traffic. Why is the timer paused? Because there was a red flag. So red flag in qualifying, the timer is paused. Red flag in practice, the timer still counts down. Although the FIA, for the first time in its history, I believe, or at least since I've been watching F1, actually afforded the time lost in those red flags back to the practice session. So, what's in store for Aston Martin? Are they even trying to improve the chassis or putting blame on Honda? They're putting the majority of the blame on Honda, I think, yeah, and the engine. They're way down on power. So that's their primary focus. Even if they have the best chassis and the best aerodynamic package, they are not going to score points on the regular and fight up further up the grid with the level of power that they have right now. Top speeds, yeah, I can show you the top speeds. So here are the top speeds. And in the speed trap, it's Arvid Lindblad who is quickest. 330 kilometers an hour. Hamilton's quite far up there, which is interesting. Two McLarens. Two McLarens. Look at how slow they are across the finish line in particular. Very slow. And then across the speed trap, 317 and 314. I mean, they're 4 kilometers an hour slower, 5 kilometers an hour slower than Hamilton and like George Russell. That's quite significant. So McLaren not as quick in a straight line as they should be. They do always lack in the straights, yeah. But I thought they'd fare better, considering how good they were at Miami, which still needed, obviously, a lot of dependency on power because of how long you are at full throttle at Miami. I thought they'd fare quite well here. So maybe they just got their engine. Look, this is the thing again. I hate bringing this up. They might genuinely have battery deployment issues. Just the problem with these regs is that we don't know. Without any battery graphic available to us, which F1 is still refusing to give us access to, we don't know who is utilizing their battery well, who is having battery issues. It's a real shame, and I really want us to be able to have it because it's a fundamental part to how the races are going and understanding who is doing good and who isn't, who is having problems and who isn't. Did I hear the controversy around Ocon? I did. It wasn't really too much controversy, though, was it? It was just misreporting by typical people on Twitter, taking out of context what the actual story was and what was said by the journalist. So I don't think there's anything to it. If Hamilton gets pole, it would be pretty cool to see. It would be pretty cool because it'd be also very unexpected because I don't think anyone expects Ferrari to be on pole here. And I don't. And I still don't expect this pace to be carried across into the softs. I hope I'm wrong, but that's what I see. Ocon fighting for his seat should be on top 10. I mean, I think he is still fighting for his seat because Behrman has definitely got off to a better start to this season. And he hasn't impressed at the start of this season, Ocon. He can complain about the car maybe not being there, but he also hasn't been able to match what Behrman has been able to do. He's crashed into Colapinto with a very costly mistake there in China. So he's not squeaky clean. You can't put all the faults onto battery issues and the car and that. So we currently have a delay in proceedings because of the crash with Fernando Alonso into the barrier, and they are currently just repairing that barrier. So we are waiting for that barrier to be repaired so that they can, then get underway again. Does Ferrari have a chance at pole in Canada? I still don't think so, but time will tell. Hopefully we don't have long to find out. And by the way, I was wrong that there'd be no red flags in sprint quali. So those of you who predicted earlier on there will be a red flag in the sprint race, in the sprint quali, I said no. I think it would be the main qualifying tomorrow. I thought we would have a clean session. I was wrong because it came out in the first session. Right, estimated time of resumption is 59 minutes past the hour. So you are talking now 5 minutes time. 5 minutes time, guys. Is McLaren having deployment issues? I don't know. And the thing is that we will not know about these deployment issues really until after the session when we listen to the driver interviews, which is super frustrating. Super frustrating because we all want to know why is a driver so much time off the lead because of pure performance, the car, his own performance, or because like the battery has just not deployed. And that's what we want to know. And without seeing the battery levels, what would be perfect right now is if we had, similar to here where I used to have the speed, where we would have DRS, it used to be DRS, and we would have like a battery, like just a row of batteries, battery levels, and you'd be able to see that battery level continually increase, decrease. That's what we need. So Can I explain what clipping is? Clipping is when the battery is... So you've got the battery being deployed and the engine obviously is producing the power as well. And then the battery is used up and it goes into a recharge state, and that's what's called clipping. And because there's a reduction in speed. So... why is... Well, I don't know. I've got no mods here today for some reason. They're all sleeping. He's on a timeout. Sorry, Lyrical, but if you keep spamming like that, you will be timed out, which is what I've done to you. So you can come back. You can watch the stream, and you can come back and type in the chat tomorrow. Hamilton needs to hook up this quality. Yeah, hopefully. 60-40 next year, potentially. Although, supposedly, the rumours are that now there is... So you need 4 out of the 6 power unit manufacturers to... So you need a majority, basically, to sign up to the new regulations for next year. And apparently, not everyone is on board with sorting out the power distribution for next year. One of those is Ferrari. I don't know who the others are, and it just doesn't make sense why they wouldn't want to change it. Seems really odd. So yeah, stay tuned for that one. It's not been totally agreed yet that the regs for the engines, the power distribution between the battery and the ICE, hasn't been agreed that it's going to be changed for next year. It's on the table, but 4 out of the 6 teams and 4 out of the 6 manufacturers need to agree to it. How bad was the damage to Alonso's car? Will he be able to run again today? Won't be able to run again today. No, once you crash out the session, that's it. You're not able to participate in the qualifying anymore. He will be able to participate tomorrow. It's just front wing damage, and he broke the front left suspension. So those are parts that can be easily repaired by tomorrow for the sprint race. So, yeah, driver error from him, locked up both fronts. I thought maybe something... I was giving him the benefit of the doubt because we have seen these cars. We have seen these cars lock up, and these systems, these machine learning stuff, do weird things and override what the driver can do and lock up the fronts and the rears unexpectedly. And I thought maybe that's what happened to Alonso driving that Aston Martin, which is very unpredictable right now. And it wasn't. He held his hands up and said, no, I just locked up. So... Which team do I think will challenge Merc? I think the team that's best positioned to challenge Merc is McLaren. But anyway, green light, pit exit is open. This is going to be a manic rush to the line, by the way. We have 1 minute 38 seconds. And there are a number of drivers who are at risk of going out in SQ1. We currently have Perez, Stroll, Gasly, Bottas, Albon and Lawson out. Albon and Lawson are definitely out because they didn't even participate in this session due to damaged cars from FP1. But we have Perez, Stroll, Gasly and Bottas who are at a possibility of getting out of SQ1. Now, being realistic, I don't think Bottas or Perez will be able to. I think there'll be a significant improvement by Gasly and those ahead. But there's still one position that is a bit of an unknown, because if Gasly does improve and just gets a clean lap in, he may be able to. And, well, I'm surprised Lewis Hamilton is out there. Why is Lewis Hamilton back out? There's no need for Lewis to be back out there, is there? What is Lewis doing out there? He's just being a blocker. And it looks like Ollie Behrman, I mean, hopefully there's no shenanigans here, because drivers don't want to hold any... If Ollie Behrman plays any shenanigans here, then he may hold up Pierre Gasly. So we'll see. But Pierre Gasly, who is at risk and needs to get across the line, he only has 30 seconds to do so, and I don't think he's going to be able to do so. Carlos Sainz will be able to improve here and start his lap, as will Lance Stroll, but they've got 20 seconds, Gasly and Behrman and Ocon, to get to the start-finish line. This ain't going to happen. This isn't happening. Gasly is going to be out. Gasly's out. 12 seconds. He's done. Only Carlos Sainz has been able to get here. So Lance Stroll is the only driver who can actually improve his lap time here in those guys that are in the bottom, because the others ran out of time. So let's keep an eye on Lance Stroll. Can he get into SQ2? We will see. Carlos Sainz doesn't even need this lap, as he is currently in P11. But let's see what Lance Stroll can do. Can he do it? There's potential here, because his teammate is technically in SQ2, but he will not be starting 14th tomorrow, that is for sure, after him bringing out the red flag earlier on for this session, which is why now it is only just finishing. So keep an eye out on Lance Stroll. He does a 22.268 in the first sector, and he's already 4/10 off of his fastest first sector, and it's probably not a surprise. He didn't have enough time to warm up his tyres. Let's see what his middle sector time is. It is a 24.5, so not good enough for Lance Stroll. Not good enough for Lance Stroll. He is definitely not going to improve here. They didn't have enough time to get these tyres up to temperature. These used medium tyres, and well, I don't even need to see this. It is going as Lance Stroll does indeed back out, and he will be coming into the pit lane. We have unfortunately lost Sergio Perez, Lance Stroll, Pierre Gasly, wow, at Alpine in P19 in sprint quali. Valtteri Bottas, Alex Albon, and Liam Lawson. So interesting there. Behrman gets through by just a couple of attempts. Bortoletto also there, a couple of attempts, but Fernando Alonso technically gets through to SQ2. What a drive from him. Shame he's in the barrier and he's no longer going to be in SQ2, actually driving in it, but he will start further up the grid than he would have been expecting. And then Colapinto, good qualifying for him, considering he didn't even gets there in P10. He's going to get into SQ2 ahead of his teammate, and he did no running in FP1 because of a throttle issue. So a good lap for Franco Colapinto. I don't know why Lewis even did that, to be honest with you. Yeah, maybe he just wanted to get out there and just get a feel again, keep the rhythm going. Maybe that's what he wanted. Yeah, seems a bit of an odd one. Lawson isn't in because his car has a mechanical issue in FP1, which caused him to retire from FP1, and they still haven't been able to fix it. So Hadjar in 6th this far. Hadjar, yeah, much better there. I mean, look, this is all on the medium compound tyre. The first qualifying session is always very busy as well. I don't know if Gasly had an issue or whether he just got caught in traffic and wasn't able to do any laps. But considering what his teammate's been able to do, and it's a good drive from Colapinto thus far, there was definitely potential for him to do that. What do I think? What do I think about Max? It's a very open-ended question, James. Good evening, Ted. Good to see you, mates. What was that? Mayhem. I think they will listen to the fan base. Fans don't like this new version of F1. I mean, they do and they don't. There's a large proportion of fans that do like this sort of form of F1. So, as is kind of normally always the case, it's normally the minority that are the loudest. And the majority, you then have like the silent majority. And I think, look, I've been out and about speaking to people just in my everyday life because they know I love F1, and they've been tuning in this season and they've really enjoyed it. So they're the people, like, so it's just because we are the kind of like more hardcore fans doesn't mean that our opinion matters more than others. Like, there's different ways of enjoying Formula One. That's the beauty of it, is that you can get as deep into the sport as you want and all the technical side and so forth, or you can just tune in on a Sunday and watch the sport for what it is, and then everything in between that. Next session will start at 8 minutes past, so that will be under 3 minutes time. Do I think Hamilton went back out just to keep temping brakes and engine? Maybe. What, Ian? Yeah, sometimes it's just to keep the rhythm. Sometimes it's a case of, like in golf, if there's a stoppage in play or something, it's like, you know, I'm going to keep... It's like when you've ended the golf round, right, and you're going into a playoff. Rather than going in and waiting for the guy to come in, I'm going to go keep my rhythm going. I'm going to go down the range. I'm going to keep that swing going, get that feel, rather than get cold again. Maybe that's just what Lewis wanted to do. He just wanted to get out there and just keep the rhythm. Or it may be to do with temps and be a lot more technical than what I've just suggested. This is the best racing in years. Only Max fans are salty because he's not getting his own way. I disagree. Look, I don't think these are perfect by any means. I actually, no, they're far from perfect. Let's be real. Like, I agree. We should not see Formula One cars slowing down whilst on full throttle, coming like halfway down a straight. Like, or 3/4 the way down a straight. That's not what we want. My biggest bugbear, to be honest with you, about these whole regulations, and I've said this on the Missed Apex podcast, if you haven't tuned into them, listen to them on YouTube, Spotify, etc. And I've said this multiple times. My biggest issue with the current regs is not actually the 50-50 split. It's actually not. I don't agree with the 50-50 split, and there should be less emphasis on the influence and importance of the battery. But my biggest issue with the regs is the over-dependence of this machine learning algorithm, the AI, the thing that basically is in control of your battery deployment 70% of the time, 60% of the time. That's where I have an issue, because that's taking control away from the drivers. That shouldn't be happening. The drivers should always be in control of the cars, and we got sold a lie that they were going to be in control of their battery. There were 4 different modes for them to be able to utilize, and that was what was sold to us as what the drivers will be in control of when it comes to the battery. Well, on one hand, they're correct, because that is what they're in control of. But on the other hand, it was sold as if that was all that's all the battery does. That's all that's looking after the battery is the driver. But it's not. It's the machine learning stuff, the software, and we should never have to discuss software when discussing Formula 1. I agree, critical fault. Now, it's understandable that it's going to be, like, being such a technically advanced sport that it is, technologically advanced sport that it is, that all this stuff is eventually going to obviously filter its way in and be utilised in some sense. But the core of motor racing is that you have a human being in the cockpit making decisions and using their skill and ability to drive the car as quick as they possibly can, in qualifying at least. In the race, of course, there's always management and so forth, but, you know, and managing the race and the car in a way to maximise their position and win races. That's what we watch Formula 1 for, and that's what we watch motor racing for. And involving AI and machine learning and stuff to take the responsibility away from drivers is wrong. And that isn't what is getting enough coverage, in my opinion, about these regulations. It's all about the battery and all about the engine, which is definitely something that needs to be addressed. But the over-importance and reliance of AI and the machine learning algorithm for how the battery is deployed the majority of times is what is causing these drivers to have the issues that they have. So, yeah, that's my little rant on the regs. Other than that, I'm actually enjoying for what it is. I would still much prefer to see F1 than no F1, and that as long as this championship battles, you're never going to be able to be happy. You're always going to be able to nitpick the sport that you love. Same with like football, with refereeing and stuff like that. But look, I love F1, I love motorsport, and I'm glad we've got racing, and I'm still able to see. I've been able to see some good wheel-to-wheel battles, more wheel-to-wheel battles than I've seen in the last 10 years in a season, and we're not even a quarter of the way through yet. So there we go. There we go. Right, here we go. Let's see who is going to be knocked out here. So drivers out there on brand new mediums, understandably, and will it be the same pecking order? So Fernando Alonso, we do already have one driver out of this session, which is Fernando Alonso, who brought out that red flag in the SQ1 session. But well done to him for being able to get through to SQ1, out of SQ1 nonetheless. I apologise, commentator's curse. I was the cause for him crashing there, as I was waxing lyrical of the Spaniard before he just locked up and brought out the red flag. But George Russell goes fastest in the first sector with 22.7 there. Remember, we have seen sub 21 seconds in the first sector. This track, these tyres are going to take a little while to get up to temperature again. So it will be the later you stay out there, the quicker these cars are going to be able to go. Just as we saw in SQ1, as Bortoletto does a 22.091 in that first sector. So he's fired up those mediums, which is pretty decent. Ooh. Red Bull does an amazing job with that engine because they've only had one DNF since season open. They've had 2 DNFs, haven't they? They've had China and they had Australia with Isaac Hadjar. So they have had one engine blow up on both sides of the garage. But yeah, the Red Bull engine does seem to be pretty good. And to be fair to them, while it is technically their first engine under their own name, it's not. They've hired a lot of experienced personnel to be able to build that engine. Hence why one of the main reasons Honda isn't doing so good, because they nabbed a lot of their engineers. Right, Norris, fastest in the middle sector. Lewis Hamilton, straight on it with a sub 21 second time in the first sector. So good from him at 20.8. Continuing on that form from SQ1, but is he going to be able to do it on the soft compound tyre into SQ3? We'll see. Bortoletto, a 16.435 for him, jumps straight up there. So the times we've seen thus far have all been just outlaps for the drivers, as Lando Norris does a 13.957. Pretty dab handy there from Lando Norris' first lap time. A decent last sector, a 29.4. But Lewis Hamilton is going to go even quicker by the looks of it. He's 4 tenths up on the McLaren of Lando Norris in that first sector. He's coming across the finish line now. Where does he go? Well, straight to the top of the timing screens. And he was only just slower than Norris in that last sector. But Norris in that McLaren, and Oscar Piastri as well, are losing a lot of time in that first sector. I wonder what is going wrong there for McLaren, because they are just not able to close the gap on the likes of Mercedes, on Ferrari right now, on this medium compound tyre at least, in that first sector. And that's really where they're losing all of their time, as George Russell does a mega last sector, a 29.183. That is the fastest last sector we have seen at the moment in this qualifying session. Charles Leclerc does come across the line, but he was interrupted there, it seems, in that first sector. So his first sector made a mistake and he had to bail out of that lap already. So Charles Leclerc is in the bottom, as is Oscar Piastri. Yet to set a lap time, and Oscar Piastri only goes P12, but that was a second out lap as well for Oscar Piastri. So this is technically Oscar Piastri's flying lap, as Antonelli, hardly anything to separate the two Mercedes drivers, under a tenth there, separating Russell and Antonelli 800ths to be exact, or 8.5 hundredths lap time. Lewis Hamilton third place, 1 and a bit, nearly just under 2 tenths behind the two Mercedes, with a bit of a wide gap to then Lando Norris. Lindblad doing great on these mediums. Max Verstappen goes green, of course, yet to set a lap time. He is on an out lap as well, so he is going to be starting his lap this time around. Oscar Piastri does a 21 flat in the first set, so that's better, Oscar. That's a lot better for Oscar Piastri. Finally seems to have hooked up that McLaren in the first sector. Charles Leclerc almost matching his first sector time, but loses a bit of time in the middle sector there. You can see a 23.597 for Charles Leclerc compared to Piastri's 23.3. So where is Charles Leclerc going to go? He's coming across the line now, and Charles Leclerc goes 5th fastest, slots in between Lindblad and Lando Norris. Quite a wide gap, just over 4 tenths between Lindblad and Charles Leclerc in the top 5. But Charles Leclerc off the pace of his teammate. And Charles Leclerc, well, this is his worst track on the calendar for head-to-heads with his teammates. He has his worst head-to-head against all his teammates here at this track. Canada just doesn't seem to sync up with Charles Leclerc for whatever reason. Not entirely sure why. There's still a long way to go this weekend, so maybe that will change. Plenty of time for that to change. But Max Verstappen, let's see how he's faring. So coming into turn 10 now, and 23.7 in the first sector. So this is a second outlap, I think, for Max Verstappen. This is definitely a second outlap for Max. Do not fear, he is about to go on a push lap this time around when he comes across the start-finish line with 3.5 minutes remaining of this session. So it is currently Sainz, Behrman, Colapinto, Hulkenberg, and Max Verstappen in the bottom. Alonso, we know, is already out as he's not participating, as he brought out the red flag. But let's see what occurs here. So Isaac Hadjar is improving. He's green in the first and green in the second. Where will he be able to go? Sainz moves himself up into P9 and pushes Bortoletto and Esteban Ocon down. So here we go. Max Verstappen is on his lap. We'll keep an eye out on his first sector time. Hamilton's going again as well on another push lap. Let's see how he fares. Isaac Hadjar moved up into P8. Much better, but being out-qualified thus far by Arvid Lindblad. That V-carb is very well hooked up. So Hadjar is falling foul of that second seat of that Red Bull, and now finds out what it's like to be on the receiving end, and what Yuki Tsunoda had to deal with last year with Hadjar when he was on good form in that V-carb. Colapinto moves into P11, so that Alpine struggling to get out of SQ1 as Bortoletto preoccupies P10 right now. As Lewis Hamilton does a purple first sector. Very, very good on those mediums. He likes it on those mediums. Let's see if he can do it in SQ3 on those softs. Max Verstappen, though, 21.1 in the first sector. George Russell goes even quicker in that first sector, a 20.7. That is pretty dab handy. Max Verstappen, green in the middle, as he hasn't yet set a decent lap time. 23.5 for him. That's only 7th fastest, so it's not going to be a quick one for Max. Here he goes, coming across the line now. Max Verstappen, where does he go? Currently 15th, only 9th. 2 tenths off of Hadjar. What is up with that Red Bull? My goodness. He is looking like there's comfortably going to get into the top 10 as Hamilton goes fastest by 1/1000th of a second, but that will be for only around 15 seconds because George Russell has gone purple in the first and purple in the second. And by some way as well in that second sector. He's gone 2 tenths quicker than Lewis Hamilton in that first sector. Well, about a tenth and a half. But here he goes, comes across the line. And my goody God, a 1:13.0 for George Russell and just stuck 4 and a bit tenths on Lewis Hamilton. There we go. There we go. Right. So we have 1 minute 13 seconds left of this session. Sorry, that's just kind of stumped me a little bit there because it does look like it's easily going to be a shootout between the two Mercedes boys, isn't it, for SQ3. So Hulkenberg is improving here. Bortoletto is improving. We still don't know who's going to get into SQ3 as Bortoletto moves back up into P10 and Sainz is 2 tenths behind Bortoletto. He will have not another opportunity. Will we have another opportunity? He's got 40 seconds to get across the line, Sainz. It's going to be a bit of a push for the Williams driver, but there's green sectors all across the board as the track is evolving here and getting quicker and quicker. Let's see who is going to be able to drag themselves out of this SQ2 session and get into SQ3. Nico Hulkenberg is going to be the first of those in the drop zone to cross the finish line, though. Nico Hulkenberg, as he's making his way down into the last chicane. As Carlos Sainz, is he going to come into the pit lane or is he going to go again? He needs to get his foot down. He has 10 seconds to cross the start-finish line, and Sainz will get another opportunity here as he crosses the line for one more attempt with 6 seconds remaining. He cut that close as Hulkenberg does move up into P10 and pushes his teammate out of SQ3 and into P11. So Gabriel Bortoletto will not have time to do another lap. So Bortoletto is out of this session. Colapinto, can he put himself up? He can, but only into P12. And Ocon, what can he do? He's green, but not green enough as he moves up stays into P14. Ollie Behrman is improving, but he seems to be down on pace in that middle sector. How is his last sector? It's going to be a big improvement required for Ollie Behrman. It is an improvement, but Haas not at the races here this weekend. So all eyes back on Carlos Sainz. We currently are going to lose Alonso, Behrman, Ocon, Colapinto and Bortoletto, but it's back to Carlos Sainz, who is green in the first. He's green in the second. Will Carlos Sainz be able to get that Williams, the only Williams in sprint quali today after Alex Albon, unfortunately tagging a groundhog in FP1 and eventually crashing into the wall as a result of it? Will he be able to get that Williams, the sole Williams here, into SQ3? What an improvement it will be for the Williams team, who have started off this year ever so poorly. Here we go, Carlos Sainz, as he comes across the finish line now. He's green in the first, green in the second. Can he get into the top 10? He can! By the skin of his teeth, 0.04 of a second. Carlos Sainz to Nico Hulkenberg, and he gets his way into SQ3. Carlos Sainz through into the final qualifying session. Nico Hulkenberg, P11. Hulkenberg loves qualifying P11 at the moment. He cannot get into SQ3 or Q3 at the moment, Hulkenberg. Let's just hope both Audis will be able to start the race tomorrow. As Bortoletto starts P12, Franco Colapinto is 13th, not the dizzying heights of last week at Miami. Real odd how Alpine have just lost their pace, it seems. I mean, Colapinto's still a fair effort considering he missed all of FP1, but still, that Alpine from the dizzying heights they had in Miami, not going to be achieving the same here, it seems, this weekend. Ocon in 14th and Behrman 15th. Haas seem to have lost a lot of pace. Really do. Where has that pace disappeared to? And Alonso, we know, didn't even start SQ2 because of his crash in SQ1. When does SQ3 start? It will start in probably about 3-4 minutes time. Probably 5 minutes time, to be fair. It's normally like 5 minutes. Ooh, well done, smooth operator. Russell just got the fastest lap on Canada ever. Did he really? Was that the fastest lap ever? Wow. I mean, it does show that these cars are getting quicker. As Behrman is reporting on the radio, Apologies, that was a little bit messy. Thank you, Astro. I much appreciate it. Yeah, if you've been enjoying this live stream, guys, this watch along, hit the like button. But more importantly, hit the subscribe button. Let's get this stream, let's get this channel to 100,000 subscribers is the goal. The intermediate goal is 90,000 subscribers. That's what we are aiming for, you know, step by step. So yeah, big thank you, everyone. We'll be back tomorrow, of course. I haven't got the live stream set up yet, but we will be live for the sprint race tomorrow, and of course the qualifying in the evening. I'll be live probably half an hour, 40 minutes or so before the race gets underway tomorrow, so be sure to tune in for that as well. Great effort by Williams. Yeah, it was a great effort by Carlos Sainz. Russell beat the race lap record, not qualifying. There we go. Who do I support? The only driver I support is Lewis Hamilton. There we go. SQ3 will start at 25 minutes past, so you're talking 4 minutes time. So, yeah, Lewis Hamilton's the only driver. I've said this multiple times. The only driver that I support. I've watched him since he came into the sport. Obviously, I was a lot younger then as well. And, yeah, that's it, really. Other drivers I prefer over others. I don't particularly dislike drivers. But everyone, I will give criticism and praise where I think it's due, regardless of who they are. Right. Who is going to be on pole position? We did previously do a vote, and the majority of you, if you missed that vote at the start of this live stream, the majority of you said Kimi Antonelli. And at the bottom of the vote was George Russell, which is interesting. That lap from George Russell there, I think, is mighty impressive. At the end there, that's mighty impressive. But it's all changing now as we get onto the softs. So it is pretty much, will they get an opportunity to do a second push lap here? Potentially. Normally the sprint shootout is, of course, it's 8 minutes long. So that's shorter than the normal qualifying Q3 session. But normally they get to do just one lap. But because this is a shorter circuit and because the pit stop lost time here is only 18 seconds or so, it's a short pit stop. I think we may see them do 2 push laps. I think we may get them to see 2 push laps. But it's whether or not they want to use those soft tyres, of course. Because we still have qualifying tomorrow. So the tyre allocations, they don't get necessarily additional tyre allocations just because it's sprint weekend. They have to still manage their soft tyres and their tyre allocations throughout the weekend. And if they do go to sprint, if they do go for 2 soft runs in SQ3, will that mean they have to sacrifice a run on a brand new set of softs in qualifying tomorrow? Potentially. Do I think Lewis can win the sprint tomorrow? I think maybe. I still think it's a tall order. I think he can definitely get into the lead tomorrow because we know the Ferrari has a much better race start than the Mercedes. So if he's able to start like now and split the 2 Mercedes and he starts on the front row, I think, yes, definitely he can get into the lead. But win it, I don't know. I think the Mercedes just does seem to be the quicker car here, quite evidently. And I think, as we've seen, it really depends if the Mercedes had such a poor start that they lose a good handful of positions. But if George Russell is an example, let's say it starts tomorrow and this is your grid for tomorrow, and Hamilton gets ahead of Russell into turn 1, and Russell is behind and only loses 1 position to Hamilton. Russell will eventually get back past Hamilton. The issue for Mercedes comes when they have 2 cars in between them, or they have multiple cars ahead of them. That's where the issue comes for Mercedes, and I think that's definitely been a weakness of theirs, is that they're not this all-powerful team that can just breeze past cars if they have, obviously, the faster teams, I say faster teams, like McLaren, like Ferrari, even Max, ahead of them, because we have seen that. But they do eventually get past. That's the only way that I think he can win the sprint race. I just don't think Ferrari are the races here this weekend compared to Mercedes. So the fact no one's leaving the pit lane instantly. Oh, no, here we go. Hadjar's leaving. Hamilton's leaving. I was going to say, I thought maybe they'd hang around a bit. If we saw them hang around a bit, then that means they're only doing 1 lap. But maybe Lewis thinks he can get 2 laps in. Here we go. He's going out early. Do Mercedes still have their illegal 18-to-1 ratio? I think so. I mean, it was only ever rumoured that they had that ratio. It came from one source, so whether that's true or not, I don't know. How's Tiny Stuffeyy doing? Yeah, she's doing good, but she's a handful. She's, yeah, definitely found her own 2 feet when it comes to tantrums and knowing... Well, she does. That's the problem. She doesn't know what she wants. That? Yeah, she doesn't know how to tell us what she wants. That's the problem. So, yeah, the days are eventful, but we'll see. Yeah, she's grown up well though. It's fun. It's fun to see her grow up. But anywho, here we go. Here comes the sprint qualifying session here. Who is going to be on pole position? Here we go. Lewis Hamilton out there first. Charles Leclerc still has only just come out there. Norris and Piastri saving a set of softs. George Russell is out there. Antonelli, interestingly, still not out there. That's intriguing. That's intriguing. She's still too young to know which driver she likes. Right, let's stay on board with Lewis Hamilton, shall we? We saw a fast lap time of a 1:13.0 set by George Russell earlier on the mediums, and I do suspect that will be smashed. But Lewis Hamilton is out there first. Let's see what benchmark he can set for provisional pole here. The next after him will be Isaac Hadjar, as Max Verstappen is now only just leaving the pit lane. We are still yet to see either both McLarens and Kimi Antonelli, but we're staying on board with Lewis Hamilton as he does a 25.1 in the first sector. So it's a second outlap for Lewis Hamilton. Okay, smart. Not one, so it does look like this will probably be a one and done lap. So drivers are doing a second outlap. So they are looking to try and get temperature into those tyres and make their way onto their push lap on their second run. So now we have Norris out there. Now we have Piastri. We still don't have Antonelli. They're keeping Antonelli in there quite late, and Antonelli is undoubtedly going to be the driver who crosses the line last. So that's an interesting strategy from Mercedes. A bold one from Mercedes, because it could go very wrong if there is a yellow flag or something of the like. You never know. He might not even be able to set a lap time, especially if he's going to do 2 outlaps like we're seeing from the majority of drivers out there at the moment. But here we go. This is it now for Lewis Hamilton. 4.5 minutes remaining of this session. Lewis Hamilton, he is about to cross the start-finish line and set his lap for this sprint qualifying third session. The first ever sprint qualifying and sprint race weekend that we have had here at Canada. Here he goes, round turn 2, making his way up into turn 3 and turn 4, where he famously had that incident with Sebastian Vettel and where Fernando Alonso went straight on earlier on to bring out that red flag, as Lewis Hamilton full throttle all the way down through turn 5, foot to the floor. It's a 20.947, not the fastest we've seen thus far today on the medium compound tyres, even though we're on the softs, as Hadjar goes even quicker than Lewis Hamilton in that first sector. So Hamilton not quite got it up to scratch there, but that might not necessarily be a deterrent to Lewis Hamilton, because I do have concerns that they'll be able to keep these temperatures in check on these soft compound tyres like we, in comparison, we've seen on the mediums, as Lewis does a 23.2 in the middle sector, still slower than George Russell's fastest lap earlier on the medium compound tyre in SQ2. As Isaac Hadjar isn't that far behind Lewis Hamilton on the soft, so Hadjar very much better on the soft than he was on the mediums. But here we go, Lewis Hamilton as he makes his way down the back straight into the braking zone into turn 13, past the wall of champions as George Russell goes purple in the first sector. He's got 2 temps up on Lewis Hamilton already in that first sector alone, as Lewis Hamilton does a 1:13.4, and I'm not sure that's going to be any good, to be completely honest with you, as from what we have already seen with the medium compound tyres. But maybe that's not the case. It's for everyone else. Everyone else also maybe struggles with the medias. But look at that, George Russell, a 23.0 in the middle sector, as Max Verstappen does a 13.5 there, and goes up into P2, just under a temp separating him and Lewis Hamilton. Not a bad lap time from Isaac Hadjar as well. That's a lot closer to his teammate. A tenth difference separates him, as Lando Norris's time wasn't particularly great. Full for him. I think they will have another opportunity at another lap here, but George Russell is setting the pace here, and he does a 1:13.194. Still not as quick as what we saw in his medium compound tyres earlier, so these softs aren't firing up as good as those mediums mediums earlier on in SQ2. Piastri moves up to P5. Lindblad splits the 2 McLarens. Oh my goodness, Lindblad, a brilliant performance from him. Charles Leclerc struggling here, we can see at the moment. He's 6 tenths off of George Russell as Antonelli only goes 3rd. Antonelli 3rd. Wow, what happened there? But Antonelli did only do 1 outlap. So George Russell and Lewis Hamilton, who are currently 1st and 2nd and quicker than Antonelli, only by a 10th or so is Hamilton quicker than Antonelli. They did 2 outlaps, whereas Antonelli only did 1, as did Max Verstappen as well. Maybe how much of a detriment was that to them? Maybe they should have done a 2nd outlap and we would have seen them improve. But Lewis Hamilton is going to get another opportunity here. So it is going to be 2 push laps here in SQ3 on the same set of tyres. The track is short enough to be able to do that, as we are going to see, undoubtedly, I think, some improvements, even on this 2nd push lap on this set of softs, which you normally wouldn't see at most circuits. But Lewis Hamilton makes his way through the turn 3 and 4 chicane. Here we go. We're going to find out his first sector time any moment. Now, it's a 20.594 in the first sector. Massive improvement for Lewis Hamilton. He's 2 tenths up, or 10th and a half up on George Russell in that first sector. But do not rule out George Russell either, because he has been mega in that first sector also. Can Lewis Hamilton keep it in check as he makes his way through the difficult turn 8 and turn 9 chicane? He's about to cross the 2nd sector line as well now, and it's a 23.2 for him in that middle sector. It's 2 tenths down on George Russell's fastest time, but the first sector is up. But I do think at the moment he is just slightly behind George Russell, but it's whether or not he has the pace down this back straight now. Will he be getting maybe a cheeky little toe from Kimi Antonelli down into the last chicane? It's George Russell through the first sector. What is his first sector time going to be? But Lewis Hamilton, we're about to watch him come past the wall of champions. His foot to the floor, getting a cheeky toe from Antonelli across the line, and Hamilton improves, but not enough to get pole position from George Russell. But that could be important for him to lock out the front row for himself, with Antonelli on a lap, with George Russell, with Verstappen on a lap as well. Piastri, Leclerc, Lindblad, Norris, loads of green sectors across the board here, as Verstappen did improve there, but stays P4. Eyes on Kimi Antonelli and George Russell, as George Russell does a 23.0 in the middle sector. But the first sector is slower than before. He's lost a 10th or so in that first sector, so George Russell, it's all about the last. There's Lando Norris as well. He's green in the first, he's green in the second, and he goes P2. Oh my goodness, where'd that lap come from Lando? He's pulled that from nowhere. Lindblad does improve and moves up into P8 and pushes Charles down into P9. But Charles is improving as George comes across the line and improves with a sub 1:13 second, a 1:12.965. It's all over to you, Kimi, as George Russell crossed the line there, as Piastri goes P3 and pushes Hamilton down further. These McLarens pulling out laps when it matters, as Charles Leclerc slots in behind his teammate into P5. But here we go, all eyes on our championship leader, Kimi Antonelli. Where can he go? P2 by 0.06 of a second. Wow, what a last sector from Kimi Antonelli. It is a Mercedes all front row. It is an all McLaren second row, and it is an all Ferrari third row with an all Red Bull fourth row. Oh, all aboard the sprint race tomorrow. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. George Russell, it was so close there towards the end. Lewis Hamilton is 5th place by 0.05 of a second there. 0.05 of a second for Lewis Hamilton between him and Lando Norris. And that is a shame for Hamilton, because he has that pacey start, but the McLaren also has a pacey start. But George Russell and Kimi Antonelli on the front row for how many times now this season? We've seen them at the start two abreast for quite some time on that front row. As I'm watching Lewis Hamilton down into the last corner. What happened to Lewis? Lewis had a little front right lockup. Oh no, he had I say a little. It was a little front right lockup, but a massive detriment to his lap time. I tell you what, Lewis Hamilton there, I'm not saying he would have got pole position, but I think he could have definitely comfortably been slotted in between the McLarens and the Mercedes there. He had a big front right lock up into turn 10, went wide, and yeah, that lost him a significant amount of time on a lap time that he did improve upon. So Lewis could have gone even quicker there, and maybe could have... I still don't think he would have had the Mercedes pace, but would have definitely finished qualified P3 there. But that's much better for Ferrari. That bodes much better. Charles Leclerc did a good lap there at the end as well. He pulled one out of nowhere. Verstappen and Hadjar, much better performance for Hadjar, getting much closer to Verstappen in qualifying on the sprint. George Russell, though, 700ths of a second. Well, there you go. That's that nice little notch, the first one for over Antonelli. But, of course, they've still got to get off the line tomorrow. The line tomorrow, Antonelli, we know, has had poor race starts. The McLarens are very quick off the line. We know that. They almost have identical race starts to Ferrari. So Antonelli needs to be careful because he could get swamped very quickly. And it's very tight down there into turn one. So, as we have seen, even if the Mercedes start on the front row, it's always going to be an interesting start to the race. Do I think Lando could win tomorrow? It's difficult to say because the race pace of the McLarens is difficult to know. The way that their performance has gone on this weekend, we've practiced earlier on, and even in qualifying here, there's at no point where I would have thought they would have done better, but there's at no point where I've gone, you know what? Yes, like there's something to be positive about for this weekend. Heading into the weekend, I was positive, but watching their practice unfold and qualifying unfold, I've been like, But then they pulled that out there on the softs. That's decent enough. I think the Mercedes still has too much of an advantage, to be honest with you. I think if Russell is able to keep one McLaren between him and the lead, so even if he loses a position, just say to only Lando Norris, then I think he'll comfortably get back past him, even in the sprint race. But if he has two in front of him, then it could be a different story. Love for Lewis to win around Montreal. Yeah, it would be great to see. I don't think it's going to be here. I mean, it bodes well for the weekend for Ferrari. Definitely didn't expect them to be that close, for Lewis to be that close. And look, honestly, like when you watch the mistake Lewis makes there into turn 10, it's a big mistake. It costs a lot of time. Turn 10 is so important to that last sector because if you go wide there, you are losing a whole heap of time for a slow corner, and then you lose all your speed and momentum all the way down into turn 13. So he lost a whole heap of time there, and if he did hook it up, if he kept it tight there and he didn't lock up, I think he definitely would have improved by at least two tenths. And I think he would have been probably a tenth and a bit behind Russell. So that gap to Lewis and George isn't as wide as what it looks there by any means, because that is one that you can pinpoint on a driver error, unlike battery deployment issues and stuff. So no sound. You should have sound. Just refresh. If you have issues with audio and stuff, it's all good on my end. Says I've got a good connection and that. You got no audio? I've got audio coming out. Anyone know if I'm all good? Can you hear me? There's sound. Cool. We'll continue. Good. We'll continue. You have sound. Good. How bad is Mercedes off the line in the race? I would say very bad, but they're not as good. They're definitely not as good as the two McLarens and the two Ferraris. So they're definitely susceptible to being overtaken down into turn one. I suspect that will be the case. It's a short run. The benefit for the Mercedes is that it's a short run down into turn one. So they might not possibly lose a lot of positions as they have done before. But I think they will lose positions, definitely. I can't see the Mercedes with McLaren who have a very good launch off the line. I don't see them not losing at least one. I just think they're going to lose the lead, really, to be honest with you, from at least one McLaren. Why is Lewis so slow this weekend? He's not slow this weekend. That lap time there, that gap is a bit of a falsity because he made an error into turn 10. He locked up his front right, and it cost him a lot of time in the last sector. So he definitely would have, I think, he definitely would have slotted in between Antonelli and Norris. How close he would have got to Antonelli and Russell, I don't know. I think that's pushing it a little bit, but it was probably just over a tenth behind Russell, I think. Tyre strategies tomorrow, given the medium's good performance. It'll be a standard medium drive tomorrow. Yeah, there's no... The weather report tomorrow, let's have a look at it. So, BBC weather. Let's have a look. Montreal. I think it's just dry tomorrow. Sunday definitely still looks like it's going to be rain. Yep, it does. So here we go. So we can see that tomorrow it is dry. All dry tomorrow, but Sunday is still looking... It's actually got worse. It was, oh my God, 98% coverage at 3 o'clock. I mean, it's... Even if it's moving out, so it's at the moment, the forecast is stating that it's going to be worse than when I looked at it the other day. Yesterday. Was it yesterday? Yeah, yesterday when we did our live stream. So... Still want to know what McLaren did on the last run, but the first sector got under 21 if it was deployment issue. Wouldn't surprise me if they had maybe some deployment issues, or whether they changed the deployment strategy. I think you can do that on the fly. I'm not sure if you can do it on the fly, but I think they definitely changed something, or something altered itself. This is the thing, we have to listen to driver interviews to figure out who had issues where. But there we go. Here are the sector times. You can see Lewis Hamilton was quickest in the first sector. His middle sector, 23.2. So he lost time in that middle sector on George Russell. I don't know why he lost time in that middle sector compared to George Russell there. But the last sector, he didn't improve. And because of that lock up into turn 10, maybe that front right was colder because of something that he didn't do correctly in the middle sector. I don't know, but that last sector in particular is where he lost too much time. He would have been, I think he would have, if he'd kept it tight and didn't do that lockup, I think he probably would have matched Russell's last sector there. I think he would have done. And you're talking an improvement of, if you take it at that factor then, that's a 2.5 attempts improvement. And that means he would have been, yeah, 1/10 off, which is where I think he would be. So certainly hopeful P2 or P3. Yeah, definitely P3, minimum P3 for Lewis Hamilton. And look, he's 0.05 of a second behind Lando Norris. It just means that, of course, he's 2 positions down from where he should, at a minimum, be qualifying. When the engine upgrade is going to be allowed? After Monaco, I believe it is. After Monaco. You're quite satisfied with P11 and P12 for Audi. I hope they will have a good start for a change. Yeah, I think that's a good qualifying for them. They are on the cusp, aren't they, Audi, of when their car is performing, when it's actually working. They are on the cusp of getting that car into Q3. But they're just falling a bit short at the moment of it. As I said, Hulkenberg, I think that's maybe the 4th time he's qualified P11 now, out of all 5 rounds this season. So he loves it there, but he hasn't, and he's finished P11 as well, I think, a couple of times, but he also has not started many races either. Hopefully they'll both be able to start the race tomorrow, because yeah, they seem to have a decent, like, for a first attempt, they've had a decent, they've got a good machine underneath them, but it's just reliability that is causing them issues right now. Mercedes and McLaren are faster in the straights. Well, let's have a look at those times, and you can see McLaren quicker in Sector 1, only by a couple of attempts there. I don't know where that line is for the speed trap. Sector 2, you mean, look at them. Look how quick they are, Antonelli and Russell, compared to the 2 Ferraris. But that might be deployment as well. Remember, the battery is 50% of the power now, distribution. So how you decide to deploy the battery, whether you do it in the first sector, maybe more in the second sector, is massively going to influence the speeds here. And then the finish line is quite interesting. Hamilton much faster than Piastri and Russell and Norris when he comes across the line. So maybe utilising a bit more battery when he comes across the finish line there out of the exit of turn 14. So Ferrari, I think, looking at this, are utilising a different deployment strategy. And that's something that they'll go away and assess and see if they can improve upon, just like Mercedes did in Miami. Well, most of the reason why they were quite poor in the sprint qualifying was because they had their deployment strategy all wrong. And then they went away, assessed what McLaren were doing. They can analyse that via the data. All the teams can really do that and deduce what the other teams are doing. And then they had a much better Saturday qualifying and Sunday race, at least in Kimi's hands. Evening, Connor. Long time no see. Thank you, mate. Yeah, I'm an engaged man now. George obviously saw my poll for who will get pole. Yeah, I'm still surprised people voted George the least. Kimi was the favourite, and George was the least favourite. I thought he'd at least be second, but he had more faith in Norris and Piastri and Lewis and Charles. Arvid doing good. I'm happily surprised by him. I was a little sceptical of him at the start, but now I think I'm a fan. Arvid's going to have... Look, he's a rookie. He's the only rookie on the grid this season, coming into a regulation set that is quite difficult to get on top of. And he's going to circuits that he has openly said, I've never been to before. Australia was one of those. No, Australia wasn't one of those because he would have raced it in F2. China was one of those. He never raced that before. There was... Miami, he'd never raced that before. So there's going to be circuits where he just is not good because he's a rookie. And there's going to be circuits where he feels really confident. And of course, he's someone who definitely puffs out his chest when he feels confident and he lets people know about it. And what a great performance that is from him. P9. And Liam Lawson must be sitting there. Of course, no fault of his own. Car mechanical issues for Liam Lawson that has hampered him from doing really any practice and, of course, participating in sprint quali. He must be sitting there going, oh, I just want to get in the car because Arvid has shown that V-carb is quick here this weekend. And best of the rest, quite comfortably. Look at where he is, P9. He's a 10th behind Hadjar and 2 tenths behind Verstappen. So that V-carb is looking very, very good at this stage of the weekend. Of course, things can change as the teams and drivers learn more about how to set up the car, and changes can be made after the sprint race to qualifying tomorrow. So, yeah. Teams all side by side again. Seems Merc looks good with the upgrades. It does. Yeah, it does. And we know, I think there's still a trick that Mercedes has over the rest of the field with how they recover their battery. And that's something that McLaren are getting better at, but still have not to quite utilise to the same extent as Mercedes. So even at a high energy circuit like this, they're probably just able to recover more than their competitors right now. And that's why they're ahead of the field. Not only, but I think the main reason they're ahead of the field. Science 1.5 seconds off pole. Clearly there are 2 leagues in this new F1. There is. It is a shame coming into this new regulation set that no one has been able to kind of breach into that top 4. I think it's kind of like when you look at like football leagues and so forth. You have the top teams, and even with like a cost cap or whatever, with all these financial systems that they put in place to try and bring the competition closer and stop unlimited amount of spending. These top teams in all sports just always find a way, don't they? They're able to hire the best resource. They're just able to find a way to stay at the top. And it makes it very difficult for those who are trying to get into it to get there. And Formula One is no different to like those other sports that have a similar kind of system. And Williams, we had a lot more hope for Williams to be able to do that because they've been at the top once before. Honda, of course, and Aston Martin. We thought, if anything, it'd be Honda and Aston Martin, and look where they are. They've royally screwed it up. Yeah. So it's tough. Maybe there'll be improvements made when they change these engine regs and so forth, if they change these engine regs. But I mean, Audi, maybe they have the. I mean, Audi does have the resource and the name behind them to potentially do that in the long run, not probably in the short term. So yeah, hopefully, because the more teams, the closer the competition is, the better it is for us. But I'm still happy that we've seen the level of racing that we have seen. Ferrari don't have any upgrades this weekend. No, they don't. They're bringing their big update package to Barcelona because the next race is Monaco. So there's no point in bringing an update package to Monaco. And then, yeah, the Barcelona's where the big update package is coming for them, apparently. Last year, the field was so much tighter with lap times. Well, they decided to fix what wasn't broken. I disagree. The last regs were broken because, yes, qualifying was very tight. However, we had races where there were like no overtakes at all. Like it was just the dirty air. The cars had got too finely tuned and developed, but they were putting off so much dirty air that the cars, which were the heaviest and largest in F1 history, were unable to overtake. You needed over a second advantage on your tyres on the car ahead to be able to overtake. That is a lot. That is a hell of a lot. And that's not what I want to see in Formula 1. Yes, qualifying could always be closer, as it is, and it is getting closer now. It is getting closer. But I would much rather have a better racing product than a qualifying product. That's how I've always thought about it, if you had to give me the choice. Of course, we want best of both worlds, because we're greedy. But I'm less concerned about large gaps in qualifying than I am about the race and having good racing and the drivers being able to follow closely and have those good battles. And look, we saw that in Miami. We saw Lando stay within the rear wing under the rear wing of Antonelli for pretty much the whole of the second half of the race after the pit stops. And Lando wasn't able to get past Kimi, but that was because they were so equally matched. They was on like the same age set of tyres. There was one lap between them because Kimi pitted a lap before, so there was no tyre delta. And it was all about performance of the drivers and the cars at that circuit at that time. And McLaren and Mercedes were so equally matched, and Lando and Kimi and Antonelli in turn were also equally matched. But it provided this stalemate. But it was still interesting to watch, and it was a really close battle, which is what you want to see. Now, if there was a difference in strategy, then maybe that result probably could have had a different outcome, and Lando could have overtaken Kimi Antonelli, or Lando was ahead and Kimi overtook him, vice versa. But that last time around showed that these regs, from at least an aero perspective, are working, and they're in a real good sweet spot. It's just the power distribution that, of course, is gone the wrong way. I like how Williams' developments went wrong. I thought you said I like how it went wrong. You are saying how has Williams' development went wrong? Because they started very early on working for the new regulations and just what was in their heads when they made the car. So I think there is genuine truth to the fact of that their original design, their first revision design, their plan A, failed the crash tests. Not once, but multiple times. And that basically made them start from scratch. I think they pretty much had to start from scratch. And that's what has really screwed up Williams. So they have spent all this time on this plan A, expecting it to pass all the tests, and it failed. And it failed miserably. And it wasn't a case of just them making some tweaks to make the car more structurally sound. No, they've had to probably start from scratch again. And that's why the car is so over. And because it's in a short period of time, because they've had to turn this around in quick succession, they've had to just do what is necessary to make it structurally sound and then go from there and develop the car from there with probably a new concept. And that's why they're in the position they are in now. Now, I don't think they've openly admitted that with the crash tests and so forth, but I don't see how you get yourself into this position with this car being so overweight as it was. It does seem like they're starting to make those improvements. As you can see, the 5-week break was probably an advantage for them. But yeah, it's it's not where we expected Williams to be, but it's their own doing because they failed those tests. If they pass those tests, then Williams may very well be comfortably the best of the rest, or maybe even fighting Red Bull or closer to the top than not necessarily at the top, but like closer to those top 4 teams than what we've seen them. Hamilton and Hadjar getting comfy as their teammates with the car, or is it driving style on this track? I think this track, I mean, I don't know, to be honest with you. I can't speak for Hadjar, or I don't really know, but Hadjar definitely seems to have a better performance here than he did at Miami. Miami, I think, is quite a particular circuit. It's a temporary race surface as well. So if your driver doesn't necessarily perform, I think Miami is kind of like a circuit that you can accept. I think some drivers may just comfortably accept that they're not good there because of how kind of it is a unique track. And you come here, this is it's a street circuit technically, but it's a track that's been on the calendar for a long time. It's a track that many of the drivers would have raced in simulators and even raced here in junior formulas and stuff, and they would have much more confidence here. And that's probably what we've seen from Hadjar and definitely from Lewis. We know Lewis likes this track. Charles, less so. It's not that he's bad here, but as we mentioned earlier on, has his weakest head-to-head record here, or his worst head-to-head record against teammates at this circuit. No other circuit is worse than this for him. And he's still, I think really that gap to Hamilton is a bit false. He does seem to be at least two to 3 tenths off the pace to Hamilton at the moment, because I think Lewis could have got to a 10th behind Russell. So that's really, 3.5 tenths is the gap between him and Leclerc at the moment. I'm sure Leclerc will close that gap over the weekend, but it's a track that, probably doesn't suit him. And that's the case for all drivers. They're going to head to circuits which they like and they don't like, and that's going to ebb and flow as the season goes on. I think the teams behind the top 4 will close up as the season progresses. Yeah, of course they will. Because the level of improvement for the teams below is much larger than it is for the teams up above, where obviously the gains that they can make are a lot more smaller and minimal. Thanks, mate. I much appreciate it. Look, I always try and chat with you guys. That's what I love. That's why I love doing these watch-alongs, is the community aspect we have here in this fill. Of course, I'm not I'm not like the guru of F1. There's some things that I don't know, and that's where we help each other out. When it comes to the commentary, of course, I'm focusing on the commentary. If there's gaps in the racing, the qualifying and stuff, then that's when obviously I'll interact with you all, but I'll focus primarily on providing you the commentary. And then before and after is when we have a lovely chat like we're doing now, back and forth, because I love it. Is it done? It is done, Ellis. Where have you been? This is your grid for tomorrow, barring any penalties, but yeah. You thought all F1 fans were gurus? Well, that depends if you're asking the Squiggly Line gang on Twitter, the ones who like to write all the squiggly lines on their phones or on Twitter. Everyone's an aerodynamicist on Twitter, aren't they? Right. You always enjoy Watchalong. Great. Yeah, thank you, guys. And, well, to be fair, let's run through the grid one last time for tomorrow. This is our provisional grid for tomorrow, and then I'm going to call it a night, guys. Just you guys do the same as well. And we will see you tomorrow for the sprint race in the morning, and then qualifying in the afternoon, or after that, evening time for me, of course. So, George Russell and Kimi Antonelli starts P1 and P2. Very close qualifying in the end. Maybe a bit closer than I thought it would be, but George Russell gets that little early win in this weekend, qualifying on pole. Will he be able to convert it? Tune in tomorrow to find out. He has the very quick starting McLarens behind him in P3 and P4 on the second row. I do suspect, even though it's a short run down into turn 1, I think Lando Norris will be P1 by the end of lap 1. Or into turn 1 at least. I think Lando will get ahead of George Russell at the start of this race. Oscar Piastri P4, yeah. Lewis Hamilton should have been at minimum starting third place. Could he have got into the Mercedes there? I don't think so, but I definitely think with that mistake, that little lock up into turn 10, which was while it was little, very costly for him because it cost him all that time down the back straight and in Sector 3. I think there was at least 2.5 tenths improvement for him there, and that would have put him comfortably in P3, maybe pushing Antonelli, but I think he probably would have fell a bit short of Antonelli. But that gap to his teammate there, who starts P6, is a bit false. Lewis does seem to have about 3 tenths on his teammate at the start of this weekend, but I do suspect that will reduce as we head further into Saturday and Sunday. And then Verstappen, 7th with Hadjar, 8th. Much better improvement and qualifying for Hadjar. The Red Bull, not as good here as I maybe was hoping it would be. But then again, the Red Bull did progress in performance last time around at Miami. Bit slower on the Saturday, and then the Sunday, or Saturday afternoon, it definitely quickened up, and the Sunday as well. So maybe that'll be the same pattern here this weekend. Slow start to the weekend for Red Bull, and maybe they will then pick up the pace. But Hadjar will be happy with that he's a 10th behind Verstappen. That gap a lot closer than it was in Miami. Ah, no, it disappeared. Oh, no. Ah, damn it. Well, there we go. That is our grid for tomorrow anyway. That's where we got to. Lindblad was P9. Great qualifying for him. Unbelievable V-Carb performance. And Liam Lawson probably hoping that his V-Carb will stay in check for tomorrow. And throughout the rest of the weekend. Oh, you can see my eye. It's getting a bit warm in here now. Get a bit warm. And then Carlos Sainz qualified P10, so great qualifying from him. So yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. That's the roundup. Have a lovely evening, and we will catch you tomorrow for the sprint race. I'm going to go set up the live stream now, so it's not going to redirect you. So turn your notifications on, hit that bell button, so that you get notified half an hour before I go live. So thank you for tuning in as always. Thank you for the subscribers, the likes, and we will see you for another busy evening tomorrow for the sprint race. Yes, I'll be here, VJ, for the sprint race and the qualifying for the main race later on that evening. We'll see you then. Bye.